I'm Craig Taylor from Assured DP. So Randy and Craig, really excited about the conversation today. And for those, I'm going to put my business owner hat on here. Some of this stuff we're going to be covering today, I did not know. Obviously, what M365 does or doesn't cover, and quite honestly, it scared the crap out of me. And so it's something I'm glad you guys are here learning more. That's why partners like Assured DP, the value they're bringing, because some of us start putting too much trust in some of these solutions like M365, and we don't fully understand what they cover and what they don't cover. So really excited for the conversation today. So Randy and Craig, thank you guys.
Appreciate that, Brian. Thank you. So, as Brian mentioned, Randy Kern, Director of Cloud Services here with Choice Solutions. To Brian's point, I will be celebrating my 16-year anniversary coming up here in a couple of weeks, actually, with the organization. So, I've been here a long time, worn a number of different hats. Most recently, the Director of Cloud Services. What that means, ultimately, in a nutshell, is I'm the one doing most of our managed services, conversations with our customers, helping design solutions for from managed services as well as from an ongoing IT strategy with executive leadership. And actually, I was fortunately one who also brings a lot of these new technologies that we look to bring to our customers to bear. I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Assure Data Protection, and actually through them have worked very closely with a pretty phenomenal solution in terms of traditional backups. But more importantly, we want to kind of focus on a little bit more in detail today is really that M365 backup and why it's important, why we need it, and why it should be a staple is something you're considering in your repertoire in terms of really countering those threat actors and malicious behavior in the environment, and ultimately protecting your data. So, with that, I'm going to turn over to Craig, who I had the pleasure of work with for a number of years now with Assured Data Protection, to go ahead and get us introduce himself and get us kicked off.
Sure. Craig Taylor here. I have been at Assured for about 2.5 years now. I have a long background in data center and disaster recovery. I like to say that I've been doing it since the last century. Makes it easy, short, and simple. But I've been on the customer side with Hyatt Hotels and Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And then I jumped to the dark side years ago because I realized that customers are trying to keep the lights on every day and keep the business going. And they really need help and experts on the sales side that they can trust to help them. That's why we work with partners like Choice to help you understand what we can bring to the table to help you meet requirements that you need to meet, right? So this is what we're building every day, and we'll dig into what Assured does and hopefully answer some questions for you here today. So Assured has been around for about 9 years now. Rubric technology came out about 10, 11 years ago, and Bipul Sinha came to our owners who had done this sort of work in the early 2000s with backup management companies, and they got out of the business and went on to do other things. And Bipple came to them and said, "I need you to start an MSP for Rubric." And they said, "Nah, we're not really interested in doing backup anymore. It's the I talk about it being the last dollar and last priority of every business, but it can't be anymore, right? Because now it's a cybersecurity issue." And when they looked at the Rubric technology and understood the business model that could be built around it, they really dug in and started building this business. And we're growing like gangbusters today. We're jointly owned between the US and the UK. We have customers around the world. And we are helping customers somewhere every week recover from a cyber situation of some sort. And just to give you some sort of scale on that, when our owners did this in the early 2000s, for about 10 years, they had 3 major recoveries in 10 years. We're helping somebody recover from a cyber attack every week now. So it's the amount of problems that have come up has really grown exponentially. And you have to make sure that you've managed all your data. Our data sets are sprawling now, right? We have got things on-prem, we've got things in the cloud, we have SaaS-based solutions that we're getting into now, right? That's really where it's going. And with M365, there's a critical piece about how your data is managed. And
Right.
in the mark, is there a question?
Yep. Just real quick. We're not seeing your screen, but I don't meant to
Not
share that.
sharing my screen.
Yep.
Well,
Sorry.
you just keep talking while I don't share my screen.
Yep. No worries. Sorry. Didn't want to interrupt your flow there, but want to make sure you were aware of that.
Talk forever about with no screens.
No worries.
I had all this planned out, and then I didn't click the share button. We back up a slide. Just a real, just a highlight about Assured. We're a global company. We've been around. We have years and years of experience. We talk about the choice experience, the team that we've hired, to help understand your technical requirements. The team that I'm running now, I've hired a bunch of people, people from, back. I look for backgrounds like mine where they've been on the customer side, they understand what you're doing and what you're dealing with in your seat every day, as well as experience on our side, understanding what the OEMs and what the products are doing and things like that. So M365, it's right in the contract. Microsoft recommends a third-party copy of the data. At the end of the day, they're not going to take responsibility for your data, and the data protection capabilities in M365 are very limited. So if you have requirements to keep data for a much longer period of time, and you want to manage, you have a large churn of users, and you want to manage that data, it's not easy to do it in the Microsoft realm. What Rubrik allows you to do is create that backup copy of the data, takes it out of your tenant. So if your tenant's compromised, you still have your data offsite, and then give you full access to manage it. And when you do this with Assured, now you're getting an extension to your team, right? An extension to your IT group that is going to help you monitor and manage this. We don't take any capabilities away from our customers, but we're going to do everything with you and for you as well, managing the data. And we'll talk through that. So what encompasses M365 protection, right? M365 is now a subscription, and we're going to provide you a SaaS-based offering for data protection. So when we set up your environment, we discover your subscription, and we can protect everything in your environment. Now, in some cases, you may not want to protect everything. I have a customer today that only wants to protect their mailboxes. They don't want to protect OneDrive, right? That certainly is configurable within the technology, right? You can, we talk about objects, right? Each user is an object, each OneDrive is an object, each SharePoint mount point is an object, right? So we can manage the way you protect these mount points or in these objects any way you want, right? The pricing is very straightforward. We go on a use basis, right? So it's a consumption model. So it's seat priced, but there's also a capacity component. But the capacity is a pool, right? So if you have a lot more capacity per user, then we can add licenses to that and adjust the price appropriately to make sure we're covering the environment that you're protecting today. And as this changes over time, right, we can manage the cost of that solution on the back end. Exchange is always the important piece, right? Mail is now the critical workload of most businesses, right? And the capability to manage and backup Exchange is very granular. I can get into deleted mail from 3 weeks ago and go pull things out of there. So all of that is very capable. And the protection is once we get everything set up, it runs in the background, and then we're going to monitor and manage it for you, right? So what do you get when you do this with an MSP, right? You can go buy Rubrik and set up Exchange and M365 backup and manage it yourself. But now you've got to take the time to make sure things are in place. If changes happen, if things break, you have to react to that, right? Assured is an extension of your team. We are pulling in the metadata about your backups and automatically generating tickets when things break, right? So if there's Microsoft issues in the cloud and things start to break, we will see it. We will start to address it. We have access to manage your backups and your backup data only, which is, of course, encrypted, so that the access to that data is blocked from us. We're just managing the process. And if we need help in the environment in M365, we have, context within your business to help us work through those things, right? But this automated monitoring process is going around the clock. It's called Protect View. We pull that data in, and then we auto-generate tickets based on the severity of the problem. We can help you set, as part of the process of working with us, we help you set up the environment. So we have best practices for data protection, and we'll bring those to the table, but you have requirements that, may be different. You may have requirements to keep everything for 7 years or 10 years, right? Or you have a policy where you're going to back up for 14 days and that's it, right? We'll help you set up all those policies. We'll make sure that you're protecting everything that you want protected, and that we we account for everything you don't want to protect. One of the things that customers have an issue with often is um, environments change and new objects don't get protected. Right? We build default policies to pick up new users as they come in, and if there's a set of objects that you don't want to protect, instead of taking them out of data protection, we mark them as do not protect. So they're all inventory to control. Right? Um, Business continuity is important, right? So if you have a major problem, we can help work through that process and do our recovery, right? One of the key advantages of working with Assured is you have a team at the end of the phone that does only this. We are only a disaster recovery and data protection company. We're not focusing on anything else. Rubrik is the only tool we use. It's the best tool. So we've tied our hitch to Rubrik because of its immutability capabilities and security overall. Rubrik customers have never paid a ransom. We always get their data back, and it's true for all of our customers. Very granular recovery options, right? So I can go in and search through the environment for a specific email I want. And the search capabilities in Rubrik are very robust because as the data gets back up, it's all indexed. So it's a Google-like search. I can go in and start typing a term, and it will give me a list of all the objects and emails that match that, or files in OneDrive or SharePoint, right? So if I know the email I want or the file I want, I can go search for that, and it will give me that file and when it was backed up. If it's a file that's changed often and you're editing a document every day and you want the one from 3 days ago, you put in that document name and it will give you a list of versions to recover, right? Because I back that up every day because I'm changing it every day, and I can go back and grab another version. So very easy to go out and get pieces and very granular capabilities, and then comprehensive restore capabilities. So I can restore back to your environment, your user, and I can overwrite things. I can put another copy in the same spot. I can restore to another folder. I can restore to another user. I can even restore across subscriptions. So if you're managing multiple subscriptions in your business and you want to move a user from one to the other, you can do that with Assured's capability.
So I think that's a couple of good things. If you don't mind, go back just a slide real quick there, Craig, to kind of touch on, right? So if we start talking about what no, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely do backup with M365, but you have to pay for that additional backup capability, right? So to just be aware that again, and to Craig's point, there's limitations, right? The most granular you can get is like 10-minute restore points for up to 14 days. And then you go to weekly snapshots, right? For up to a year. And that's it. So again, if you have more granular requirements, that's again a key use case we're going to be looking at. The other thing that I think that Craig hit on is that granular restore and be able to search and find the specific thing that you're looking to restore. Most of the restores inside of Microsoft, you're not able to granular restore. It's a full mailbox or it's a full container repository, and it's a rollback to a point in time for all of the data. It's not just a selective data you're trying to recover, or maybe got inadvertently deleted, or you're looking for a previous version or something to that effect. So these are key reasons why this is recommended, and where the solution starts to really differentiate from kind of the Microsoft. Microsoft's notorious for going 80% of the way and leaving that 20% for really to the enhancements from a third party perspective. And that's really where that recommendation comes from Microsoft, is that if you're really looking for granular restore recovery of individual data files, components, being able to have that retention down to that granular level for a period of time, extending, and again, the ability to archive that out maybe for a longer retention period to, as Craig mentioned, either if you need anything longer than a year, which a lot of regulatory and compliance are required to hold on to things for longer than that, we can do that with solutions like Assured Data Protection and the M365 backup. So again, key differentiators to understand why there's a difference, why this is important, why what Microsoft provides versus what you can get from a third-party provider, specifically using Assured Data Protection today, like we're talking about. So sorry, Craig, just want to interject that real quick. Go ahead and take it away.
Oh, perfect. Great additional information. So what are we trying to protect from, right? We're trying to protect from a cyber attack. Cyber attacks are, there's two sides of the cyber attack discussion. They're going away. We're getting better at protecting, but they're making money doing this, and they're finding new ways to get in, right? AI is helping them impersonate people and get credential passwords changed and get in by logging in, right? And this is where they really can get in and make a a huge impact in your environment. This is where we see the major attacks today. They've gotten in and they're just running around inside, causing all sorts of havoc. And this is where you need this immutable data set they can't get to, they can't destroy, they can't change to be able to help you recover, right? So the security pieces of Rubrik are excellent. The data is immutable. We're going to back this up to another tenant within the region, right? So Rubrik's tenant within your region, so it's out of your tenant, so it's air gap data. And then the security pieces are very strong within Rubrik. So MFA is enforced, right? You can't do it without it. And then we have you can have role-based access rights. You can limit privileges to people to only what they need. And then there's a piece called quorum authentication. So for administrative rights, for like changing retention on backups and things like that, we can turn on quorum authentication, which requires a secondary authenticator to make the change. Once you set your retention policies, you're not going to change them, right? And if you do, going through this extra step is worth the security that it grants you, right? So someone in another part of the company, someone in HR or an executive is that second authenticator. Often it's us, right? As part of the solution, we'll be on that list so that we're going to help you if you need to make a change. And that way, if a hacker gets in and gets your credential, they're not going to be able to do anything to the backups, right? And then when we come in to help you recover, we're going to, have all that data to be able to come in and do all that work. Automated protection, right? This is the key, that you want to be able to set this up and forget about it, right? Everything's protected. You know that you've set the policies you want, and then Assured is watching on the back end to make sure that everything's working right and calling you when there's an issue, right? Some of the parts of the solution that are encompassing here is we're serious about keeping communication channels with our customers. We do quarterly reviews or often if it's required by you. We have a dedicated client services contact so that you have someone you can call, ask questions about, and of course, 24/7 support around the globe. We have level 3 support in the US and the UK, and we have call centers in Costa Rica and now Tunisia for French language speaking, in the UK as well. So we're covered across the globe. So if you have a problem at 3 a.m. in Denver or, Miami, someone's going to be at the end of the phone ready to help you out, right? And then the recovery pieces, right? We are dealing with Microsoft. So recovery speeds can be affected by the network in the cloud, but in general, the recovery time for Rubrik M365 is very quick. When we do demos, which you can request one, we'll get on the phone with you, show how all this works and sets up. When we recover an email, by the time we get to the mailbox to look for it, it's already there, right? So very fast, very quick recovery. When you're doing large data sets, right, that's going to take a little bit longer, but it's the speed of that data movement, which is for the cloud, is very good. And then looking at, the attack vectors that can happen, right? We talk about the risk assessment, risk management here. You've got to have a solution in place to manage this risk, right? And it's really a cost versus risk discussion. But at the end of the day, you've got to have an immutable copy, a clean copy of that data to be able to recover from if something happens. Like I said, we have customers that we're helping every week. We've had customers that we've had their data backed up for 2 days at a bit attempt, right? We've had customers that have been here for years and all of a sudden something major happens. So making sure that that data is managed and protected and there for you. And you can see in this picture that if you get a breach and they get your credentials, they can start pulling data out. And the recovery options that are available to you today are thin. And if they have your credentials, they can mess up those capabilities, right? They could, break that data, damage that data, make it inaccessible, delete it. And even if you have other copies of the data, they can block that, or the recovery time for, long-term archives like legal hold and litigation hold and things like that is very long. So you're sort of stuck if you don't have that third-party copy. And then with Assured and Rubrik, once you get there, you make a phone call and we're on with you working through the process to get you recovered, right? With email, it's how many users have been affected. What has the ransom been dropped for? Understand your blast radius, figure out where that right copy of data to come back from is, and then go, right? And we're here to help you work through that process. At the end of the day, it's your decision, and Rubrik can help provide a lot of information to help you make decisions on how to get your environment back. It's not, it's not, we talk about disaster recovery. We've been doing disaster recovery for years, right? Cyber recovery is not disaster recovery anymore because I can build that second copy of data, but if the encryption gets into that second copy, I can't recover. You have to have this air-gapped, immutable protection to be able to recover, and then having a team at the end of the phone to help you work through the process is invaluable.
And I think the point there, Craig, is that as you mentioned, when it's ADP helping to do the restores, but it's usually going to, again, when you get into an incident, we're going to be working directly hand in hand with your cybersecurity insurance, right? That's almost always going to be key. And they're going to be looking at, what was compromised, what needs to be restored, is data. And again, here's where we can get into where we can look at the air gap copy, confirm if it's compromised or not, go back to a point in time where it's not. They can sign off on it, and then we can restore that data and that set back into your tenant and get you back up and running in a much faster period of time and not impact any of the users. Again, this is where like granular recovery comes into play without having to roll back potentially if you were just on a native Microsoft backup. Hope you can go back far enough before the encryption event happened again, and to a granular point, or you have to roll everything back, right? And then now we're talking about a loss of data, not because of the threat actor, but because you have to roll back to a point to where they first invaded, and you're now losing productivity, granularly allowed to still be there. So again, some very key points there, but ultimately just keep in mind this, anytime you have an event, you always want to make sure you're leveraging your cybersecurity insurance first and letting them dictate the processes, and then we'll get engaged to work with them directly to help through the recovery process when they have authorized it and determined it's there, and then we'll get that stuff back up and running for you in very short order.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to have this plan in place. It's hard to test, right? Every ransomware incident is different. And then the expertise to bringing it all in the right people to help get you through that process is valuable, right? Um, and I talked about some of the features of working with Assured, right? You get a dedicated service delivery manager. So there's that point of contact because you're giving this critical function over to a service provider, right? You want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. We want to make sure that we're communicating with you about any changes, anything that's going to affect your environment along the way to make sure that, that protection is there 24/7, 365, right? We're going to help you work through the process of the implementation, configuring SLAs. Backup SLAs are backup schedules, right? What objects, what email are we going to protect? How often does that need to be? Do those backups need to run? How long do we need to retain that data? Rubrik is a very good solution in managing the data in the background. So I don't have to do special copies for weeklies or monthlies. And Rubrik rolls up um, incrementals under the covers. Rubrik is incremental forever. So when you implement Rubrik, it's going to take a while to get that first copy of your entire M365 environment. But every backup after that is an incremental. And, early on when incrementals forever were an issue and we were doing, um, a regular roll-ups of those manually, right? Rubrik manages that all under the covers, a certain amount of backups. It's going to roll that up so that there's no performance issue when you recover data. Full reporting. So as I mentioned, we have a product called Protect You that pulls the metadata about your environment in and auto generates tickets when we see issues come up. We're also managing that data to provide reports to you. So we provide you a daily report that you can open up your email once a day, see 100% backup completion, and go about your day, right? It gives a bunch of other detailed data about the backup environment, and if there are issues, they'll be noted. And oftentimes, you'll see them and understand that we're already working on them because once they become a critical issue, like a large section of backups are failing because of some communication issue somewhere or something, communication is always an issue with backup, right? That data's got to get from point A to point B, and if that gets broken, the backup failed, right? So we're watching those all the time, and then we're gonna immediately do a troubleshooting for you on your behalf in the environment until we need your help to actually get into the environment and look at what's going on. We have a major incident management process so that if you have a major attack or some other issue, in the cloud, the we're going to help manage through major incidents, right? We're going to put a project manager on it, and we got technical people under the covers digging into whatever incident is going on with your environment. Um, and then, of course, cyber recovery expertise, right? We're going to provide that level of support to help you get back up and running after you've done the work to understand what's going on in the environment, and we'll work through that with you. The quarterly service reviews are important, right? When you set up a managed service provider, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing every day. We don't need to talk every day, but we do need to keep that communication open, right? We're going to make sure that we're doing regular touch points. You've opened 5 tickets in the last quarter. Were they resolved properly? Did we meet your expectations? Are there issues today? Is there capacity growth we need to manage? All those things we're going to review to make sure that you're happy with our service and we're doing everything we need to support your environment. And then documentation, right? So if you need support in documenting the environment for any audits or um, resources that you may need for audit support, if there's regulatory agencies that need to know that you have solutions in place, we can help provide the documentation to help you get there. As I mentioned, right, we're going to provide this service to make sure that you're protected and that everything is accounted for, right? Making sure that all the data is protected in the way that you want based on your requirements. 24/7 support piece is important, as I mentioned, right? We are a Rubrik authorized support partner, which means that all of our support is Rubrik certified. And when you buy software from a company, you call that company and you'll get software support. They don't know your environment. We are managing your environment on a daily basis. And when you call us for support, we're looking at your backup environment and looking at the history of what's going on in your environment. We have all that data and we can provide you a much better level of support for any ongoing issues or anything that comes up because we are an extension of your team and we're watching your environment. And then as I mentioned, we have a support model that's going to, give you that level of urgency based on the urgency of the problem to make sure that we're getting you that support level. And when you raise issues, we're going to address them, right? Sometimes communication gets off and we're not giving you the support you need. That's where you pick up the phone, you call us, and we're going to rectify those issues. That's how much time do I have left here? That's really 365 in a nutshell, right? And our service in a nutshell. I'm going to go on to cover a little bit more because Assured Data Protection is really a disaster recovery service organization as well. We're here to protect all of our customers' data. M365 is an important piece, but we also go into the data center and into the cloud to help you manage your environment. Rubrik is a full service data protection, data security solution, and they roll the management of your M365, your on-prem environment, your cloud environment, other SaaS offerings like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics and others. They roll that up into one interface that you can manage. And then, of course, we can pull all that data in and manage more than just M365 for your environment, right? But this is a great place to start because that data set, as we took that management off the table, we outsourced it to Microsoft, right? And M365, is now Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint is now a subscription service. They're managing that for you. Now, let's take that one step further and bring in a third-party service with choice to manage your backups for M365. But we can go beyond that. Because really what we're focused on is we're focused on protecting your data wherever it is, right? We're focused on bringing in the Rubrik security pieces to help detect anomalies because we're trying to keep the bad guys out. We're doing everything we can to keep them out at the door. We're watching east-west traffic in the production to make sure that we're not seeing any anomalies internally, but they're getting in, right? As I mentioned, they're getting credentials and getting in like a regular user and then causing havoc, right? We can detect some of those anomalies and react to them quicker and help get a resolution quicker, maybe before the ransomware attack happens, but also afterwards with the recovery capabilities that we have, right? And as I mentioned, disaster recovery is not cyber recovery anymore, but a cyber recovery solution can do both, right? Because it's about bringing your environment back, whether it's um, a ransomware attack or a fire or a flood. We're here to help with all those pieces. So the way we manage on-prem for our clients is really in a tiered solution, right? So for your on-prem environment, you've got a set of an environment that needs to be backed up and managed, and we can help manage that with you. We call that tier one, straight backup management. Um, Back it up locally, send long-term data to an archive, bring our best practices to the table, and help you work through that, right? Tier two is simply replicating that copy to us, having a second copy in our data centers that we can have for emergencies to recover you. This is not a tested recovery service, but if we have your data, we have processes to recover our customers, and we just run through them in an ad hoc emergency process to bring you up to tier two. You're paying for that second copy of data, but it's offsite and it's protected and it's highly accessible, not like an archive, right? And then our bread and butter is disaster recovery as a service, or what we call our tier three. And this is where we've replicated your data to us. And now we go through the process to build out a recovery process, because traditional DR is to set up a secondary data center and replicate our environment to that secondary data center, right? Customers have been doing it for 20, 25 years. And it's a very lockdown process, but it's manual. There's a lot of care and feeding, a lot of work to be done to make sure that that stays up to date. Well, we do it very differently. We take your data center and rebuild it in another data center exactly as it is, right? We're going to take that backup copy and recover it into what we call reserve resources, a isolated recovery environment, a clean room allows us to recover your environment with automation. So as part of the implementation, we're not only building out backup service levels and helping you get your data protected properly, but we're going to look at your environment and start to build out that recovery process, that orchestration to bring everything back, and then we test it, right? So the key to disaster recovery is testing. You've got to be able to understand how long it's going to take to recover and know that it works. We provide 2 tests a year, 3 days per test, and we give you documentation around the test and a certificate of a successful recovery, right? The idea here is that once you've built this process out, we're going to do the care and feeding to keep it up and running and provide you that regular testing, regular reporting that you can take to your insurance providers, or other regulators that care that you have a solution in place, right? Some in cyber insurance now requires a recovery solution before they'll even issue insurance. Other regulators need to know that you have a recovery solution in place. So that there's a lot of capabilities here from Assure that can help you manage this this piece of the business that has become more and more important as it's now a cyber recovery solution rather than just data protection, right? And I think this is a good place to stop for today. I've shown you a little bit about the solution, and I'm sure Brian's got a couple of comments here to close this out.
Yeah, no, Craig and Randy, great job, guys. And I know that, just like I said, as a business owner here, I was baffled to learn, like I said, how exposed our data is, and that it could be lost, and Microsoft does not guarantee that backup. Because once again, me too, I put a lot of stuff and a lot of trust and hope into OneDrive. Well, if OneDrive goes down and I can't get reconnected to that, that data is lost. And so those are things that, like I said, we wanted to make sure to do this event to kind of educate people that it's great. These solutions are phenomenal, but we also need to have fallback solutions like the backups and the recovery and the components like that. And Assure DP makes it really simple. We'd love to have a follow-up discussion that we can kind of understand what you guys are doing, how you use an M365. That might be a great starting point. You might have a current other backup solution for your other products, but then we could talk about how you can evolve that if you're interested. We're having a lot of continuity discussions right now. Customers are saying, look, I want to get out of an active data center, and we could talk to them about how Assured DP can not only help them in the continuity of the backup, but we can also do multi-site stuff where they can recover in their cloud. And so those are other conversations that we're having really in the small to medium enterprise, that people are looking like, how do I better leverage a service rather than trying to do an active data center? And how do I leverage expertise? Because like I said, when we have seen customers who's have been exposed, like I said, having a team of resources and experts like Assured DP, who once again have never had a compromised installation, having them be able to restore that and work alongside you, I can assure you is worth the weight in gold. So Craig, thank you guys for your continued partnership and efforts. Please do take the survey. Please submit the data on, like I said, a response. One, hook you up with the speaker, but also two, we would love to have a follow-up conversation, how we can help, how we can partner. We could get a conversation with both Randy and Craig to talk about where you're at and where you might be able to go. And so we can, the first one is to make sure that your email and your OneDrive and that stuff in M365 is secured. Then we could talk about maybe in the future some other options and how we could partner and support you. So with that, thank you for taking the time today. Thank you for the customers around here, the partners. Thank you for your trust that you put in our organization, but also too in the prospects. Thank you guys for taking the time. And like I said, we do value that, and we want to make sure to bring great content to you guys. So with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. We hope everyone has an amazing day.